Welcome to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery, a mental health and addiction recovery podcast show. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery with your host, Fred Carroll, that's me, and the great, amazing Spider-Man himself, Scott H Silverman. Crisis coach, life coach, author, father. What else? That's it.
Older fella.
Advocate. Everything. Recovered addict. Everything.
I like recovering. There are some people that say they're recovered. I like to say recovering. So that reminds me that I'm still on the journey.
Well, recovering is much more in the now rather than recovered is in the past, and recovering is a positive, more of a positive influence to continuing it. But you would know better. You would know better than me that the word should be recovering rather than recovered. Because you really, I know you're going, what are you, 38 years?
37.
Let's call it 38. I like the number 38. But
it's coming up in a few months.
Right. So do you really think there is an instance, if you just threw caution to the wind, there's no urges. You have no urges left anymore, right? But is there an instance where you can even imagine it? Going back to having a drink or anything like that. Is it that strong? Is the addiction that strong even now?
I don't think that part of the subconscious mind, I can't tell you I have it under control, but I have management tools and I stay connected. I still go to 4 meetings a week, even if I come in late and leave early, which I do sometimes on Zoom because I have busy mornings. I stay connected and I think it's important. I mean, look, again, if I was a diabetic, I wouldn't just stop at some point because I don't like injecting insulin in my body. Because if I did, I'd get sicker. So to me, that's the way I look at it. And, I hear a lot of people say, I was broken and all I am is an alcoholic. And to me, it's a disease I have. It's just part of who I am. And today, part of who I am is being in recovery. And I do what I need to do and check in with others and do things like this and talk about it. And I do it professionally now as well. So I believe that if I were to put myself or allow myself or get into a situation, walk into a bar, I can certainly do that. But if I were to stop going to meetings and stop doing what I need to take care of myself and move away from my spiritual program, it'd just be a matter of time before I pick something up.
Yeah. Well, it does sound like that kind of puts a spin on things that addiction isn't always bad, because it sounds like you're almost having addiction to the recovery now.
Right. And the recovery part still allows, or not allows, but, depression, anxiety, good days, bad days, feeling stuck, catastrophic events. I mean, I remember losing my family. I mean, it was tough. And I'd say to myself, I wonder if I should drink over this. And I would ask myself the question, and then I immediately would find the answer. No, it's just, my folks wouldn't want me to do that. I don't want to do that. We lost my in-laws, and the science behind it is, if I were to start drinking today, my body would not recognize the fact that I've gone 37 and a half plus years without a drink or drug. And so I could be right back where I was in a moment's time. So, knock on wood, and, I'm lucky I have family that supports me. And, and when I get a little out of whack, which happens, or, have a little temper tantrum, I still have those, but I'd rather have a little temper tantrum than hear what's happening to some people. And you know what, when I go to meetings, I hear the horror of this disease. Someone who's been around, they'd have recovery 8-9 years. They went out, they thought they'd be okay with just a drink. And within 3 months, they come back and they've lost their apartment and their relationship and their job. in 90 days. I mean, how does that happen? Because it's catastrophic. So for me, I'm a firm believer that, this disease is permanent.
Right. And it makes sense. It just doesn't, it's hard for somebody such as myself with no addiction of that sort issues. I've got I've had nicotine and stuff, but it's hard. We could understand it, but it's hard to honestly say we get it. It's just like when somebody says they have anxiety and somebody says they have depression. If you don't have it, it's hard for you to grasp all of it. But
and I think I'm lucky because I'm in the field of helping others. And every day, every week, there's not a week that goes by I don't talk to a family. And I'm working with one now that has a 17-year-old who lost a brother just last year to opioids. And they're worried. And they go, I don't understand why he wouldn't see what happened to his sibling and not do it. And I said, this disease doesn't differentiate. It doesn't allow the person to, to say to themselves, oh, that happened to them, what happened to me. You and I were talking before we started about this woman that was interviewed in Skid Row about fentanyl. And it's interesting. She had said that 80% of the people in Skid Row are under the influence. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a man on the street kind of interview up in Oakland, somewhere in Oakland. I can't remember where. And some guy was just ranting and screaming, going, it's not a drug problem. Only about 5% of the homeless here get high, which is interesting. That was his take on it. And then when she was asked, what would you do if you got some methamphetamine or some cocaine or some other drug that was cut with fentanyl? She says, oh, I'm not going to worry. I've been doing drugs so long that, I'm immune to it. And I got to tell you, that's the kind of attitude I think young people have when they're taking counterfeit medication and they say, this won't happen to me.
Right. It's a statistic until it happens. And once it does happen in them, you see the change, but it's too late. I mean, I had briefly mentioned to you about a person I'm not necessarily a friend to, I'm friendly with them, who lost their son recently to a fentanyl overdose. Right. And, even my own son was saying he doesn't know how he feels about this because he knew this was going to happen, but nobody did anything. But that's a bad attitude too, because he didn't do anything either. But is it his job to do anything? He's just a ex-friend of the person. Maybe he did behind the scenes. He was confused with it, and I told him it's okay. You don't have to pity him or anything. All I asked him to do was, if you speak to the mother, you politely you don't bring that up. You don't make it about you. Right now, it's her that's suffering. So make sure you say the right words to her. Now, is that me telling my son to be a liar or no? I'm just telling him, be a gentleman about it. Pick your battles. Now is not the time to state your, I told you so's. That's not going to solve her problem. And it's her that's alive. She's not the addict. She did, I assume, the best she could with the situation, but it got out of control, and it's not his job. But it's a very confusing conversation, but it's a conversation I'm very welcome to. I'm glad my son said something like that to me, and it makes you can make a difference. There are white lies you could say. More than a white lie, I guess. It's kind of more of a pick your battle. Now is not the time. Be compassionate. I guess it's a compassion thing. And realize. And I think,
that kind of conversation, or any kind of conversation, just talking about it is how we're going to reduce the stigma. Because if we don't talk about it, it's not one of those things where you go out and you break a leg because you jump too far from a tree to get to another tree. Thinking about my background here, it's one of those things that when you step into that zone and you put something in your body, the risk factor is so high today that the outcome it can be and is for many people death. So why would someone gamble with that? You and I talk about that almost every week. Why would someone gamble with that? Why would someone drive a car 60 miles an hour in a rainstorm with no headlights on? I mean, why would you do that? You just wouldn't do it as a conscious decision, but when you're in the influence, your regular mind ain't working. It's gone to sleep, or it is, looking the other way.
It's a brutal. It's a brutal part of this. I mean, what's next? I mean, they're already talking about it. There's another drug in Florida that's even worse than fentanyl now, or, has more potency. We'll have to look into that, but it's.
Oh, I just read about, what's it called? It's being sold at 7-Eleven, which are, one of those little one-stops. You get gas, snacks, pizza, and everything. I just got the text from somebody the other day.
I'm checking too.
Tyranny or something, but it's over the counter, and you're good at this. You'll find it quicker than me.
Yeah, it says it's 20 to 100 times stronger than fentanyl. ISO is what they're calling it.
No, this is something else, but I know what you're talking about.
It's a deadly synthetic opioid found in Florida called isotonitazine, something like that. But, oh, my goodness, they just are searching for the next big thing, at all times. I guess science can be bad.
Well, when you're I just had a recent article come out about the euphoria, my perspective, how it could help kids and may not. It's one of those kind of a mixed messages. I'm gonna look for this thing because it's kind of interesting, because it's going to be easy to get. And, they say fentanyl is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine, just to give you an idea. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah, and that's incredibly, it's just alarming when I hear those types of numbers, because you realize what that really means.
Right.
And because I'm no good luckily, I guess we can call it lucky, but after I had my surgery on my knee, I couldn't take pills. My stomach got so upset that I just vomited every time I took a pill. I can't stand being high. Never smoked pot. I wasn't into that scene. And it just didn't sit well with me. So maybe that's a blessing more than a curse. Well, yeah. Definitely is. But, let's move on to the
exciting part of the show.
Well, more the fallout from this, the slap heard around the world there. What are you hearing on this from different standpoints?
Well, it's interesting. There's a few people that seem to be not supporting his behavior per se, but supporting the fact that something may have happened. But it seems like the majority of people are upset about it, concerned about it, shocked by it, and don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? So I personally, as I shared before, I'm against any physical hand putting on anybody else, especially in a violent way. And I don't condone it. And I think, and I think the consequences are coming, the options are coming out. I understand he just resigned from the academy personally, and obviously I'm assuming his choice. And
which it does not mean what people think it means.
Right.
Even though it's, first of all, everybody could be removed from the academy is a year-to-year thing. So if Scott H Silverman is in the academy, next year you may not be. They decide whether you're in or out. And that's where they made the mistake. He honestly should have been removed from the academy by them, pending an investigation, rather than him having to stay, because that's just a PR move, just like his apology is just a PR move. These guys got powerful PR writers, and it was a powerful one because he did it in 120 characters, which they say is amazing from a PR standpoint, because it becomes printable. It becomes, the whole thing's in front of you. It's not unlike his thing, but the fallout now is lawsuits. Lawsuits are going to be the fallout.
Who's going to sue? Who's going to sue who?
Well, I would say first you're going to start with this movie that he won Best Actor for, King Richard. Okay, because what usually happens is you produce a movie, you cut deals with these big actors on percentage points, payouts, and stuff like that. predicting that the movie's going to do well, tracking and stuff, that it's going to do well because Will Smith's in it and the subject. Well, the movie didn't do well. Okay. It never recouped its money. And this instance is going to cause, usually when Best Actor award is given out, the movie's re-released in the theaters. And it makes $100 million and they could have recouped their cost. But now it wasn't released into theaters again because of his actions. And they're going to say, because of this, we're losing money now.
Oh, so they're going to go after him. By the way, I don't know if you can see that or not. Can you see that? You probably can't see it.
No,
it's called TAINAA. TIANAA. It's called Gas Station Heroin.
Let's see.
I'll send this to you. Gas Station Heroin. Kind of like, remember when Spice started coming around? This looks like something like that.
So the main ingredient of it's Tiana, TIANA.
Okay.
The main ingredient in Tiana is tianeptine,
okay,
a highly addictive synthetic drug that gives its users a euphoric high and strong withdrawal symptoms. The drug claims to help with anxiety and depression and is marketed as an herbal supplement. And it's a gas station drug. I mean,
yes. The headline here is Gas Station Heroin. I just sent you the link from the Addiction Bulletin. We got to get Leonard on here one day.
it increases serotonin uptake in the brain in contrast to most antidepressant agents, and it reduces stress-induced. I mean, this is just ridiculous. They can't control any of this because of the legal red tape. It's over the counter, so anyone can get it. And then whenever a publicity piece comes out on it, the kids who didn't know about it go, "Oh, wow!" So all of a sudden, there's a spike in consumption, and then there's more issues that go on around it. Which is, instead of investigation, kids, young people, other people say, "Oh, wow, that's what I can get high legally." Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is this goes back to, I remember in the 80s not me taking, but people taking, maybe it was like Sudafed pills and using them to get high.
Right.
Taking more than the dosage. And that just falls into deeper with this stuff. But back to the Will Smith stuff.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We needed to know about this.
By the way, do you remember when Sudafed and all those different cold medicines, all of a sudden they were put in cages like tobacco and locked up because people were grinding it up and smoking it, snorting it. And it's just.
Yeah. But then the person you're relying on is a 17-year-old kid behind the counter who you could just send 10 of your friends in and you got 20 of the things in a heartbeat. It just made it a little more difficult. But like you always said, an addict will always find a way. So they're going to figure it out.
They're trained like that organically. So you can't even go back to the school and go, who trained this kid?
Right. So with the Will Smith stuff, you got 3 of his movies are now backburnered, which means they're opting out of. One of them was I Am Legend 2.
Right.
And that was and this is where the fallout of one person, think of all the people he's affecting. There's a cameraman attached to that film that now lost his job because of an action of another person. Mm-hmm. It becomes almost a massacre type slap where people are now, not that the cameraman's not going to find another job, but he was locked into that, or the producer or the writers. There's somebody down at the bottom, whether it's the hairdresser who was just going to make $5,000 that week.
Right. Well, and they may not have taken a job because they wanted to carve out that one because that was going to last longer. Because anything that, probably Will Smith does or has always done is probably well funded. So it's the kind of thing that, you get a chance to maybe make your wage and be around a group of people and all kinds of amenities I would assume, on the set. So is that person eligible to sue him as well?
I don't know. You know better than me, being the parent of a lawyer, but
that doesn't make me any smarter. Just in some ways, it makes me dumber when I sit at the table. But in California, that was a stupid question, but in California, you can sue anybody for anything.
Right. And that's just
And
the
they
world.
do.
You could at least try. There's no harm in that woman trying. And the chances are the Will Smith fallout's going to be just payouts. It's going to be, let's keep this at, I don't want to fight on 2020 with the hairdresser for a lousy $10,000. It's just send it to her, you know, because that's a penny to him.
So, you know, it's interesting. I just heard today, you know, we're really kicking in our ADHD today, that the oligarch that owns this big steel mill, did you read that? I'm sure you did. And it's a third of the owner, 2/3 of the ownership of this major steel mill. It's been around forever. Russian owned, you know, they interviewed some of the key workers, and they're all concerned that they may be producing steel that makes tanks for Russia. But on the other hand, there's like 1,500 workers there. And he goes, there's 1,500 families here, you know, and we never either put two and two together, or never was an issue before, because so much of the community was supported by this company. Then they interviewed the VP, and he says, we're as American as a company can be. And yes, you know, our parent company is a Russian company.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. But look how many people are getting caught in the crossfire now.
That's my point.
Even these Russian soldiers. We got to remember that they're somebody's kid too.
Yeah.
You know, these Russian soldiers who no soldier asked for this. It's their job. They're being sent off somewhere. Here's your gun. This is what we trained you for. They're the enemy. And you do it. And, you know, they're right now that guy that goes behind the scenes. I can't think of it. The anonymous guy who could get into files and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He just released, I think, 15,000 personal documents on Russian soldiers. Their addresses, their backgrounds, and all that stuff. He just stole that from Russia and released it all online.
Mm.
And it's just tempting crazy to act crazy, you know, and that's part of the problem. That's why sometimes me and you come on here, we realize this isn't a waste of time, whether we were talking to one person or 1,000. But there are times when it feels overwhelming that, what am I even fighting for? You know, what are we even trying for? Because for every one person we help, 100 new ones appear, because there's counter people going against us almost. And there is casualty to everything. And I want to believe that Will Smith realizes what he did was wrong. Okay, let's assume that he does.
This guy's a pretty bright guy. You don't get to where you're at like that without some sort of smarts. I'm sure he realizes that what he did was probably not only highly inappropriate, but in that setting, you know, well, the world's talking about it now. And, you know, there's no way he's going to be able to, you know, snap his fingers, flip a switch. This isn't going away easily, but how he's processing it, I hope, you know, it doesn't end up causing him to harm himself.
Right. And now the one thing is, you know, Oprah's going to get the interview. That's where he's going to sit down in her garden, and it's going to be completely overproduced, and questions are going to be monitored and all that. Nobody's going to buy into it. This is where I personally...
Wait, you don't think Dr. Phil will get this one?
No, I don't think so. I think it's bigger. It goes bigger than... Because then if he's on Dr. Phil, he's going to have to admit it's a mental health issue.
Right.
And he's not going to want to do that, because that doesn't help his thing. Now
I can't believe that he's got to weave that thing in. And otherwise, in my opinion, if he wasn't going through something, then in my opinion, it looks even worse, because then there's a side to him that people will interpret any way they want to. And, you know, it's interesting. I haven't heard anybody talk about the political perspective on this one, you know, like the Democrats say, oh, he shouldn't have, and the Republicans said he should have hit him harder, you know, anything like that. I haven't heard any political banter around it, which is kind of interesting, because politicians tend to step into everything today as if they're all either Oprah or Dr. Phil in their own mind, you know?
Yeah, and I haven't seen many from the political, but let's be honest, there's bigger things in the world for them to worry about, hopefully. But they,
by the way, did they, sorry to interrupt, did they vote for that judge today? Did she?
Well, she was voted and it came up a tie, 12-12, but that means she moves on to the Senate, which is Democrat controlled, and then it goes through, from there. It's just, that's another, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that doesn't offend me in any way, because that's an American right, and we both all have that right. It's more the infighting. I can't stand it anymore. I can't watch the opinion arguments anymore. Everybody gets locked in. Like, just for instance, the swimmer at Penn, who's biologically a man, is transferring to, I don't know all the verbiage, so don't, kill me on this, but trying to become a woman or is becoming a woman, whatever the biological and the science has done. So she's swimming we'll say they are swimming as a female.
Right.
And beating the competition. Now, is it unfair? My opinion says yes, it's unfair, but there's also enough science out there to prove me wrong, and I could deal with that. That's just a personal, if you asked me, gun to my head, what do you think of this? I don't think it's fair, but there is testing, there's rules involved and stuff like that, but overall, it's such a minute thing. Because out of all the high school, let's say universities, out of all the universities in the United States, I think there's only 8 of these instances out of 600,000 athletes, to which 1% of them go pro, which means 1 out of 6,000 has this biological difference. So in the long run, it's when's the last time you heard anybody care about college swimming? Unless you have a daughter involved in college swimming.
Yeah.
Do you really, and now all of a sudden it's a big deal, and it's just opinion-based opinion. Nobody does fact-checking. And that's the bad thing of this internet and stuff, is you hear it, and it's just frustrating at this point. I can't stand Facebook personally. I like it from a marketing tool standpoint, but it's just too easy to hide behind this and type your opinion, which you would never speak, and all that. It just boggles my mind. Boggles it.
I got a pedal assist bike about 1.5 years ago. You know what those are, pedal assist?
Yep.
And that's what I'm using social media for now, is to go on and hear about people that, got this brand or that brand, or why they picked this one, a mountain bike versus a street or road bike, and look at different accessories they're getting and what they're doing to, modify the bike, and the most comfortable seat, and how to tighten your spokes. I mean, in my life, I try to keep it simple, and it's kind of cool. I don't know if I'm trying to get back into riding, or into riding. And because you ask me all the time, what's new? And I didn't mention it because I hadn't really thought about it, because I have the bike, but I haven't really got on it because it's just, I don't know. I haven't got the right shoes yet.
Yeah.
So I'm looking on Facebook for the proper shoes for a high arch and a wide foot, so I can really have, the maximum caloric burn while I get on my bike.
It is two things I'll mention before we end the show. One is I happen to own an amazing mountain bike. It's like a $800 mountain bike that I won. I ended up winning it in a raffle. I've probably owned it 4 years, maybe more. I don't think I've been on it 4 times. But yet I enjoy that type of thing. But I don't know if I enjoy these things by myself. I can't tell. Is it something I want a partner to do with, whether it was a friend or a woman? Would I enjoy it more? It just seems like it's something that I may enjoy. But what I want to get to from a science standpoint that fascinated me today, absolutely fascinated. I had spoken to you about my knee injury and how I was getting injections into my knee of this hydrochloric acid or whatever it is.
You mean cortisone?
No, I went higher end. This is a higher end stuff, and it's very expensive, and it was My insurance company approved it. So it was 3 shots of this stuff. They told me it would take 4 to 5 weeks for it to take. I woke up this morning for the first time since I was a teenager, pain-free.
Wow.
Where I can't believe, even sitting here right now, I'm not rubbing my knee, trying to get a little numbness out or anything. I feel amazing, and I'm going to take advantage of this, I hope, without damaging the knee.
Get out on a bike and get hit by some knuckleheaders under the influence of fentanyl.
Right. And that's where our show ends, and that's how it always ends.
Leave it there. Yeah.
That's how it always ends. And that's the movie ending. That's the Scott and Fred movie, when we end up getting millions of listeners and stuff. But so you want to give out your phone number while we're about to end this?
Yeah, I do. It's area code 619. That's San Diego, 993-2738. 619-993-2738. Call, text me, find me at yourcrisiscoach.com, Google me, Scott H Silverman. And if there's something going on with you and yours, give me a call. Let's talk about how we can get them pointed in a direction different than they're going.
Okay, and that's it. So I'm Fred Carroll. You are Scott H Silverman. And if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. This is Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, everyone. Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery is produced by Venom Studios. Copyright 2022 by Venom Podcast Studios. The show is hosted by life coach and author Scott H. Silverman and author Fred Carroll. Our intention is to reduce all stigmas and to provide information that isn't discussed enough. If you or someone you know has an issue, please contact your local authorities or substance abuse counseling centers for help. The suicide hotline could be reached by dialing 1-800-273-8255 or simply text the word HOME to 741-741 for free 24/7 counseling. Scott H. Silverman's information could be found by visiting his website at yourcrisiscoach.com. And to learn more about author Fred Carroll, please visit www.venomstudios.com. That's studios with a Z. And remember, if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. This has been Ending the Stigma.